What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some of my craziest battles during a recent live stream I did a couple of days ago, where I used pretty much every Pokemon that learns Weather Ball in the game, initially in the Weather Cup but then also in the Open Great League. Now this was one of my worst performing streams ever in terms of concurrent viewers, but it was a completely unannounced stream in the middle of the day on a Wednesday, so completely understandable. However, it was probably also one of my most successful streams in terms of just pulling wins out of absolutely nowhere with Pokemon that really shouldn't work together, and I actually climbed a decent amount of ELO to finally hit Veteran rank in the Go Battle League and actually also hit my highest ELO of the season. Now the reason I streamed on the Wednesday in the first place is because I just can't get the moves that I want on the Pokemon I was planning to showcase in the Weather Cup, and that is still the case even now after having collected around 15 more charge DMs through tier 3 raids and GBL rewards, which is why I'm making this video rather than showcasing something new. But please let me know if you like the stream recap and if you think it's something I should do more often, as of course a lot less of you watch my streams compared to my actual videos. Now these battles will be the usual 2x speed that I normally do for my videos, with brand new commentary and not just directly copied from the stream. Anyways, with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. Would you like to see more stream recap videos like this one, and if so, which streams would you like to see me recap from this season? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Bronzong into Guzzlord. This is honestly an awful matchup. We swap into Ninetales, and we are being completely hard countered right now as they come in with a Tinkaton. Honestly, I need switch advantage massively, and so I'm actually going to fight for it, even though, of course, a Gigaton Hammer, even with several Chilling Water debuffs, is easily going to one-shot me. They do allow the first one to go through. The opponent's not going to shield the next Chilling Water either. However, unfortunately, that still doesn't quite put them into Powder Snow farm down range. So I'm going to shield the next Gigaton Hammer, and the opponent actually swaps out of that matchup into a Shadow for Alligator. Now, of course, they can outpace me to the Ice Beam here, but it's not enough damage to get the KO from that range, meaning we can reach the Energy Ball. And Energy Ball is going to grab a shield from the opponent and drop their defense, which is absolutely huge for me. We're now going to come in with the Bronzong, and the opponent is, of course, going to fire off some energy. We already know they have Ice Beam rather than Crunch. They go for Hydro Cannon, they swap into Guzzlord, and that is huge for me because we've got so much energy on the Alolan Ninetales. I fire off the Weather Ball, I throw the second one straight away just in case they're on Sludge Bomb, as I need to guarantee the damage here. Now the opponent, they're at the energy. What do they have? It's just a Brutal Swing, which means I get the Powder Snow farm down. They come back in with the Tinkaton, but we're able to outpace them to another Weather Ball. Weather Ball gets the KO, and then here I'm going to swap out. I'm able to snipe with a Water Weather Ball from the Bronzong. Weather Ball resisted damage, but it gets the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Sableye in the lead. Now, I do expect the opponent to be running Drain Punch. Whether they throw it straight away or not, probably quite unlikely since we are a flying type Pokemon, but I'm going to go for a Weather Ball here. Weather Ball is going to be shielded, so I'm actually going to swap out into my Bomber Snow. As you can see, I do have two Pokemon in the back line that have multiple double weaknesses here, and of course are both ice types, so if they do have like a fighting type or a fire type Pokemon maybe, then it is obviously good to bait it out. But of course they stay in with the Sableye. They're now going to come in with a Carbink, which isn't ideal. However, we've got Energy Ball, we're able to grab a shield, and can we reach another one before they farm us down? Yes, we're able to do so. So of course this is going to connect as all shields are down on the opponent's end, and it does reasonable damage. However, unfortunately, my entire team is weak to the rock typing here. By the way, if you were wondering how we decided on these teams, basically we just spin a wheel and then we get randomly assigned 3 Pokemon that all have access to Weather Ball. But anyways, the opponent's going to come in with Azumarill, but I've got access to Thunderbolt, and I'm going to swap out and make the catch of the Playrough. Playrough should be taking out the Pelipper from that range, and now I can look to massively overfarm. I'm going to farm and throw just before we reach 100 energy here. Thunderbolt gets the knockout. I don't know if Weather Ball would quite KO, but we reach another Thunderbolt before they get to the rock side. Thunderbolt takes out the Carbink, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's won there into the next battle. We're going to see Empoleon in the lead. So the opponent's going to be safe swapping into a Kingdra. I'm going to come in with my Shadow Abomasnow, and the opponent might not be on Surf here. So I'm going to no-shield this, as the opponent is going to fire off a Swift. The reason why I am going to come in with the Abomasnow here is just in case they do, of course, have Surf, then that's a horrible matchup for the Aurorus. But in this meta, the Weather Cup, typically they are on Swift and Outrage. But either way, it doesn't really matter too much, as it looks like the opponent is just going to double shield and then fully Dragon Breath farm me down. So, of course, that's not ideal, but I'm going to come in with the Aurorus, and honestly, even if they do have Surf, I'm not going to bother shielding anyways, and I'm just going to save my shields for my Sunny Cast form. The opponent is going to full send the Outrage. That still does huge damage. We swap at the same time as the opponent, and they're going to come in with a Gastron. However, this is just a Body Slam. Body Slam, not going to deal too much damage there, and we have the energy for the Solar Beam, so we are full sending. Solar Beam gets the one-shot, of course. That's double super effective damage. They come back in with the Empoleon, and of course, I am resisting the Metal Sound damage. They're dealing hardly any fast pressure whatsoever. The opponent's going to swap back into Kingdra. I'm going to bank the energy. I swap into Aurorus, and we force the opponent to throw some energy here. Of course, Swift going to get the KO, but we can come in, double resistant, Ember, farm them down, come out with a second Solar Beam loaded. This is neutral damage this time, but it still one-shots the Empoleon, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's over there. Into next battle, we're going to see a Bastiodon in the lead. So that is not ideal because, once again, I am double weak to the rock typing. However, Pelipper can at least put up a bit of a fight here because we've got access to Water Weather Ball, which is, of course, going to hit for super effective damage. However, unfortunately, it is not even going to 3-shot them. But the opponent doesn't really want to tank the next Weather Ball, so they will fire off the Stone Edge and get the KO. I'm going to come in, of course, with the Ludicolo. I feel like the opponent is likely going to try and swap out and catch the Weather Ball, and they do attempt it. They try to swap and catch it onto their own Ludicolo, so I'm going to fire off an Energy Ball, and then eventually I will swap into my Amora. Now, unfortunately, both Weather Ball and Energy Ball are super effective in this matchup up against the Amora. Honestly, this Pokemon just doesn't have any play into their team so far, but I'm hoping that they are incredibly weak to a Ludicolo in the backline, as here I go for the full Astonish farm down. Now, the Bastiodon is fairly close to a Charge Brief here, but we're going to overfarm. We're going to fire off the Weather Ball. Weather Ball is going to be shielded by the Bastiodon, and it's actually a CMP tie. So, of course, I'm going to look to shield this. The fact that they're shielding implies that they probably do have something in the back line that is going to struggle up against Ludicolo. However, I am just incredibly low in HP. So we fire off the Weather Ball, and it is going to be a Jellicent in the back, but it doesn't look like I'm going to reach back-to-back charge moves. I am going to bait with a Weather Ball. Weather Ball grabs the final shield, but we barely miss out on reaching a last-second Energy Ball, as they're able to fully Hex farm me down, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we are going to see a Unova and Stunfisk in the lead. I'm going to be swapping out into my Shadow Hippowdon, where I'm able to catch a Mud Bomb. Now, unfortunately, I'm double weak to the ground typing, which isn't ideal since so far we've already seen 2 ground type Pokemon. And not only that, we're also seeing a Seismitoad, which does have great coverage into other ground type Pokemon with Icy Wind. But we're going to go for an Earth Power. Earth Power does huge damage. Unfortunately, I don't think it's worth shielding here, so I am going to let the Icy Wind take me out. But we can now come in with either Pokemon, commit to the farm down. We come in with the Soul Rock. I don't want to reveal my final Pokemon just yet, and now I'm just going to start spamming out these Fire Weather Balls. First one, not really going to deal too much damage here. Second one is going to get them fairly low though if they do end up no shielding, and then eventually I will actually swap out into my Bronzong, and the opponent doesn't actually throw any energy at all. Instead, they swap into Jumpluff, but this is a really good matchup for me, as of course I'm going to resist everything they can possibly throw. We fire off the Payback. That ends up grabbing a shield, so potentially could have baited there, but I feel like baiting is a bit unnecessary. Of course, Payback does cost quite a lot more energy than the Weather Ball, but I can still take 2 Acrobatics. I'm now going to swap back into Soul Rock, and the opponent swaps back into Stunfisk, but I'm able to force a CMP tie. Weather Ball is going to grab the final shield, and you know what? I don't know if I will level Mud Bomb, but I'm going to shield anyways because I can get off the Psywave damage, and of course, at this point, I should be able to Confusion farm them down. But Mud Bomb doesn't KO, and actually, it's me that's able to Psywave farm them down, reach a last second Rock Slide into Jumpluff coming back in, and this is going to put them into range where a single resisted Weather Ball from the Bronzong will be enough damage to get the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent into the next battle, we are going to see Shadow Hippowdon once again, and Bronzong and Amora. So unfortunately, Pangoro is a really tricky Pokemon for me to deal with, especially for the backline, which is obviously going to be weak to the Dark typing and double weak to the Fighting typing on the Amora. So at this point, we are just going to stay in. This time around, I'm going to bait with a Weather Ball here. I feel like they will double shield, and they are going to do exactly that. At this point, they've got so much energy, I can't really afford to shield here because they will reach another move, but they actually full send a close combat. Now, of course, they've debuffed their defense, which means we can come in with the Amora, and these powder snows are starting to add up. However, unfortunately, I won't quite be able to go for a full farm down as they bait with the Night Slash. They are going to reach another close combat here. Close combat, still going to do big damage into my Bronzong. They come in with Shadow for Alligator, but they end up throwing a Charge Move here. Honestly, even if we had Side Shock, that is not getting the knockout, so that is a waste of energy. What that means, we can come in with the Amora, we can overfarm just slightly, Thunderbolt gets the KO there, and they're going to have a Corviknight in the back, which honestly is usually pretty decent for Rock-type Pokemon, especially with Electric-type coverage. However, unfortunately, we are just way too low. The opponent is going to hang on there to that Thunderbolt damage, reaching a last-second payback, taking out the Amora, and unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's opponent into the next battle, we're going to see a Abomasnow in the lead. By the way, some of these battles are in the Open Great League, some of them are in the Weather Cup. They both got a full send and outrage there, which I really was not expecting. And actually, I was honestly tempted to try and swap out and catch a Charge Move there, but I guess it doesn't really make sense on the Ludicolo, because likely they would go for the harder hitting Energy Ball anyways. But either way, we're going to see a Lantern coming in. We're going to full send a Dazzling Gleam. I'm running Dazzling Gleam here just because in the Weather Cup, a lot of Pokemon are obviously going to resist the Water typing. So I don't feel like Chilling Water really has that much play, and especially in this matchup up against this Lantern, of course, Chilling Water wouldn't have done much there for me. But we're able to put them into perfect Sideway farm down range, and their final Pokemon is a Mantine. Now, Solrock is down a shield, however, we've got the tools to beat the remainder of their team because we've also got Fire Weather Ball, which is double super effective into Abomasnow. The opponent is on Water Pulse, they're going to full send it. I'm going to look to overfarm once again here, and then fire off another Rock Slide. Rock Slide, it's going to be no shielded. It doesn't quite get the KO there, but it puts them into range where we can farm it down. They come back in with the Abomasnow. Weather Ball grabs the final shield, but I've got so much energy on my Ludicolo. Weather Ball gets the knockout there, and we can actually reach another Weather Ball into the Mantine coming back in, and from like 1 HP, this will get the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent into the next battle. I see Shadow Typhlosion in the lead. So, of course, that is not a great matchup for me. I'm going to say swapping into my Cast Form, and the opponent is going to choose to stay in here, so I can outpace them to the first move, and I will fire off that Rock Weather Ball. The opponent has a lot of energy. I think I should be able to live a single Thunder Punch, but they full send the Blast Burn there before swapping out into a Blastoise. So at this point, I'm going to fire off the Energy Ball. That is super effective damage. Unfortunately, no debuff here, but I can throw a Rock Weather Ball on the Simpy Tie with a Hydro Cannon. Rock Weather Ball is going to be no shielded. Unfortunately, doesn't quite put them into farm down range here, so I'm going to no shield a Hydro Cannon, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my Shadow Ninetales, and then look to catch a Hydro Cannon, where it's of course double resisted. So Hydro Cannon not going to do much damage at all, but the opponent comes in with a Jump Bluff, and this is a horrible matchup for me. Of course, I could be on Ice Beam, but I'm not, so instead, I'm just going to overfarm here, force the opponent to throw straight away, and potentially, if I can overfarm enough with my Ninetales, maybe I still have some play. Of course, Typhlosion is one away from a Charge Move, so I did have to throw there, but can I actually reach back-to-back Chilling Waters? Of course, this one is in the Open Great League. We're able to go for the first one. The opponent is going to throw some energy. I think this is a mistake because if I'm able to get damage registration error, I will win this game, but unfortunately, I'm not able to do so, and as a result, they Incinerate farm me down, and I end up losing that game. But GG's opponent into the next battle, we're going to see a Slowbro in the lead up against my Pelipper. They're going to throw straight away. This is just going to be a Drain Punch, which of course is resisted damage. So now I'm going to swap out into my Lunatone, where I am resisting the Confusion damage, and I can fire off a Rock Slide. Rock Slide, of course, they've just debuffed their, they've just buffed their defense, so it's not going to deal too much damage there, but I'm fine shielding a potential Scald, although they do end up debuffing my attack stat. That is certainly not ideal because they come in with a Alolan Sand Slash, and these Rock Slides already hitting for neutral damage, but now it's going to struggle to even two-shot them, but I can actually just bank the energy, come back in with the Pelipper, fire off the Weather Ball. Weather Ball going to be shielded, and the opponent continues to overfarm, allowing me to reach yet another Weather Ball. The opponent actually no shields, but they hang on with 1 HP. Now, they should have back-to-back charge moves here, so they are going to throw both of them straight away, but again, Pelipper also able to hang on, which means they do use all their energy. They're actually at 1 HP, so I can come in, sidewave them down before even a Shadow Claw registers, and let's see what they want to do. They come back in with the Slowbro. I'm fine overfarming just a little bit here. From this range, a Weather Ball should get the knockout, and then their final Pokemon is going to be a Jellicent, so that is a bit tricky for me. However, if they no-shield a Rock Slide, honestly, I'm going to be in a decent position. Rock Slide is no-shielded, and now we can just come in with our Snowy Cast Form. Unfortunately, this Pokemon has literally zero coverage here, only Ice-type charge moves, but we are going to be fairly bulky. We shield the first move. The opponent is just going to go straight Surf, which does actually make sense here because Surf should be enough damage with the Hexes to two-shot us, but we can go for the Weather Ball. We can look to overfarm here. We're going to throw just before they reach the next charge move, and the opponent, I believe they now have the energy. So I'm going to swap back into Lunatoad, and I'm able to catch the charge move there. Of course, the opponent goes for another Surf. We come back in. Can we outpace them? Yes, of course we can. Actually, it looks like we could have just Powder Snow farmed them down from that range, but Weather Ball takes out the Jellicent, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG opponent into the next battle. You can see another Typhlosion in the lead. However, this time around, it's going to be a non-shadow. They're going to go straight for a Thunder Punch here, which is absolutely fine. Of course, that is neutral damage into my Cast Form, but I'm going to tank it on the chin and then swap out into my Shadow Politoed because my Cast Form actually doesn't have anything to throw into the Typhlosion. I'm now going to look to shield here. The opponent likely has a decent answer to the Politoed. In the back, they just wanted to grab a shield first, and that is absolutely the case as they come in with a Ludicolo. But we're going to farm up with full sending Blizzard, but unfortunately they end up shielding there. That is certainly not ideal. Honestly, no point in throwing a Weather Ball. We're just going to force the opponent to use some of their energy there, as they definitely don't want to be hit with a second Blizzard. As of course, all shields are now down. We're going to come in with the Pelipper. I'm going to force them to full send the Energy Ball here, which is going to do decent damage. And unfortunately, from this range, they can probably just get away with throwing a Weather Ball now. So I am actually going to shield. However, eventually, I'm going to bank a Hurricane, swap back into Cast Form, and put them into range where a Fire Weather Ball will KO. So, let's see. The opponent's going to come back in with the Typhlosion, and I have to just go for another Fire Weather Ball here. Of course, this is resisted damage, but I'm not even going to reach a Solar Beam, so kind of have to do that. Now, the opponent makes a really nice catch here, catching a Fire Weather Ball. Resisted damage onto Seismitoad. However, we've still got a lot of energy on the Pelipper. I bank some energy on the Cast Form. We fire off a Weather Ball, and I'm able to reach another Weather Ball before they can even fire off the Icy Wind. That gets the knockout. The opponent, they can't really overfarm here because I will reach yet another Weather Ball, but in throwing here, I believe they are still one away from back-to-back Thunder Punches, and Cast Form, super spammy, able to get to yet another Weather Ball in just 2 more Embers, taking out the Typhlosion, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent into the next battle. We are going to see a Alolan Sandslash in the lead here up against our Ludicolo. So, I'm going to no-shield the first charge move. They don't throw on the best timing, which means I should actually outpace them here to back-to-back Weather Balls before they can throw another charge move of their own. So, we go for Weather Ball number 1. That is going to get them fairly low. A second Weather Ball should actually get the KO from this range. So, let's see if they want to use a shield. They are going to shield and then swap into Ninetales. I was hoping to catch an Ice Punch there. Of course, it doesn't work out for me, but the opponent going to go for a Drill Run, and then eventually they are going to swap out there. They catch a Weather Ball, which honestly probably would have taken out the Alolan Sandslash anyway, so I'm not really sure why I threw it, but either way, we are now going to full send the Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam is going to do decent damage there, and the opponent cannot commit to a full farm down, otherwise I reach yet another Weather Ball, and so they will fire off a Surf. Surf is going to get the knockout from that range. I'm going to come in with my Amora here, and of course, Amora is going to take super effective damage from the Surf, so I swap out, I try to catch it onto Ludicolo, but the opponent just banks the energy, and unfortunately, I think that is now game over. I believe Lantern has a Surf loaded, I believe Alolan Sandslash also has a Drill Run loaded, so I can't afford to shield in this matchup. But unfortunately, unfortunately for me, the opponent goes and full sends a Dragon Claw. I can fire off the Weather Ball. This should get the knockout, but we've only got Powder Snow. That is resisted damage or double resisted damage into their remaining Pokemon, and it won't be enough damage to farm down either Pokemon yet. So, of course, I'm going to have to shield the Drill Run. I'm going to throw the Charge Move here, as honestly, I'd need them to no-shield this, but the opponent likely going to use the shield there. They're going to get to a Charge Move, and then they will just swap back into Lantern, which, of course, has the Surf already banked, so they can snipe me with a Surf, and unfortunately, even though we get them very low there, Surf gets the knockout, and I end up losing that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Cast Form into a Hisuian Electrode. So, of course, not a great matchup for me. I can swap out into my Sunny Cherrim, as the opponent's going to full send a Wild Charge. But then they swap out into Gastrodon. That is such a questionable play here. Of course, they were looking to catch a Fire Weather Ball, which does make sense. Unfortunately, I'm running Dazzling Gleam and not like Solar Beam or something like that. But it still does decent damage. My Bullet Seeds are chunking. So, I'm actually just going to bank all of that energy, swap back into Rainy Cast Form, and catch a Body Slam. Of course, that's not going to deal too much damage. I can go for a full Water Gun farm down. Bit of a strange animation glitch there, but either way, they're now going to come in with their final Pokemon, which is Morpeko. So running ABA Double Electric is kind of interesting, but at this point, I'm happy just no shield here. The opponent going to go for a Psychic Fangs bait there. That is very unnecessary, which means I've now got the opportunity to swap out. I've only showcased the Dazzling Gleam so far, so I'm able to bait with the Weather Ball. Now I full send the Dazzling Gleam. That gets the one shot. They come back in with the Electrode, and as long as they don't reach back-to-back Charge Moves before I can reach a nice Weather Ball, I should be looking pretty fine here. So we are actually going to go for a slight overfarm. This is not intentional. I'll be honest, I thought they still had a few HP on the Gastrodon remaining, so I thought they still had the opportunity to make a catch, but that is not the case. As Weather Ball gets the KO, you can see clearly they don't have a Gastrodon in the back, and so I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Carbink in the lead. So, this is a bit of an awkward matchup because, once again, I am double weak to the rock typing, but I do have a pretty good answer in the form of Hippowdon. However, it's just going to be a bit of a struggle to align them. So, here, I do try and swap out. I make the catch. Have I caught the Rock Slide? Yes, I'm able to catch a Rock Slide, which is huge for me, but they're now just going to come in with a Shadow Quagsire, which is a very strong answer to Hippowdon. So, of course, they can just massively outpace me, and with the chip damage from the Rock Slide, Aquatail will certainly get the knockout. We full send the Earth Power. That does big damage, but I don't think... Oh, actually, never mind. I was going to say, I don't think I can double shield, but yes, actually, I can, and I will double shield. So, let's see. The opponent's now going to come in with a Fearow. I'm going to go for a Rock Weather Ball. This should be grabbing a shield from the opponent. And then I'm actually going to swap out into my Cast Form. Cast Form is bulky enough to tank any one charge move from the Fearow. I'm expecting to come back in with the Carbink. And maybe, honestly, I should full send a Blizzard from this range, as I don't expect them to shield. But we go for Weather Ball. They no shield, but we can reach a second Weather Ball straight away. Weather Ball number 2, also no shielded, and we get a simultaneous KO. Now, we have to be smart about how we play this here, because I don't think I've got enough HP to reach back-to-back charge moves on either of my remaining Pokemon. So we come in with Hippowdon, but unfortunately the opponent is being smart. They're just going to commit to the full farm down. I tried to swap out at the last second, but the opponent able to react in time, fire off the Drill Peck, farm down Hippowdon as well, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's upon there into the next battle. I can see Shadow Drapion in the lead. So this is going to be definitely where we want to see it, because we've got a double Psychic and Rock-type backline in the back, which doesn't really appreciate Aquatails and certainly not Crunches. But either way, I'm going to shield the first Crunch. I can now outpace them to the next charge move, but I'm going to look to overfarm and then fire off the Weather Ball on CMP. Weather Ball is going to be shielded by the Shadow Drapion. I should actually just barely live a Crunch here, so I'm going to no-shield this. And then, can we go for a full farm down? No, unfortunately, I'm not able to do so as the opponent comes in with the Fearow. I tried to swap out, but my reactions are just a little bit too slow. I'm going to come in with the Lunatone here. Honestly, I could probably get away with firing off a nice Weather Ball, but I'm going to full send the Rock Slide, and Rock Slide is going to be no-shielded. Then I'm going to come in with the final Pokemon, a Shadow Annihilate. I'm going straight for a Weather Ball here. Weather Ball is going to be shielded by the opponent. We can now come in with the Soul Rock, and honestly, I should probably let the first move go through. But the opponent, knowing that, full sends a close combat, but it doesn't quite get the KO there, which means I'm able to reach a Weather Ball. Weather Ball gets the KO. I can resist its Psywave, farm down the Shadow Drapion, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to that into next battle. You can see Macargo in the lead up against our Pelipper. This is going to be a bit of an awkward matchup on both ends because, of course, Weather Ball super spammy. It's also double super effective into the Rock and Fire typing. However, they can shield the first one and then fire off a Rock Tomb and debuff my attack stat. So, we are now going to fire off the next Weather Ball straight away here. However, they likely end up shielding this one as well, and they are going to double shield the Macargo. I'm actually going to swap out here. This might seem like a strange decision. However, of course, I just catch the Rock Tomb, but also Bronzong has access to Water Weather Ball as well, and whilst it's non-stab damage, it's just been debuffed, it still does decent damage there, and it will force the opponent to throw their energy. Unfortunately, not quite able to farm them down, but they just settle for another Rock Tomb, which I'm able to tank, and now we can fire off another Weather Ball. Of course, that does very little damage into a Azumarill, but I do have a shield advantage. So at this point, I'm going to come in with my Cherrim, and again, we're not on Solar Beam here, so I'm not going to be able to one-shot them, but I can shield up an Ice Beam here, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. I'm going to look to overfarm. I'm going to go straight for a Dazzling Gleam. Of course, Fire Weather Ball is going to be resisted, so it's not going to do much there. I'm hoping I will put them into range where I can get the KO, but unfortunately, they're not quite in that range just yet. So I swap out, I catch the Ice Beam onto my Pelipper, and we force the opponent to swap into their final Pokemon, which is a Mantine. But Hurricane going to do huge damage. The opponent able to commit to a farm down, but this is fine with me because this is just going to be a Twister. It's quite unlikely that they have either Aerial Ace or Ice Beam, and Water Pulse is resisted damage. So here we overfarm. Dazzling Gleam gets the KO. They come back in with the Azumarill. Have I put them into range where Dazzling Gleam KOs? This is going to be super close here. Dazzling Gleam doesn't get the knockout, but one more Bullet Seed gets that farm down just as they're reaching the energy for the Ice Beam, and I'm able to take that game. Into the next battle, GG's to that previous opponent, by the way, and we're going to see Morpeko in the lead, which unfortunately is a huge core breaker to this team because I've got a Rainy Cast Form in the lead, and I've also got a Soul Rock in the back, which has no fast pressure whatsoever, and of course, a Dark Aura Wheel will be one-shotting us for sure. So at this point, we're just going to stay in. I'm actually going to double shift because I have very minimal fast pressure with the entire team because, of course, Embers from Shadow Ninetales was very spammy, able to get to those Weather Walls very quickly, aren't really going to be able to fast move farm them down. So I double shield, but I am able to get rid of Morpeko, but they're now going to have a Grumpig in the back. I'm going to look to overfarm here. The opponent is going to catch a Fire Weather Ball onto Furret, which unfortunately it looks like they will just narrowly be able to tank 2 Fire Weather Balls. So maybe I should have gone for an Energy Ball here, but we go for the Weather Ball, and unfortunately it doesn't quite get the KO. But likewise, Swift also not going to get the knockout, and that will allow me to actually reach a Weather Ball before they sideway farm me down. So, of course, Weather Ball is going to be no shielded, but unfortunately, I still don't really have any way of taking out the Grumpig. Of course, I'm expecting them to have Shadow Ball. I'm going to swap out. I'm able to force the energy from the opponent, and the opponent also full sends the Shadow Ball, but unfortunately, they have 100 energy, so they fire another Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball going to get me very low, and unfortunately, whilst it doesn't quite get the knockout there, I'm just a little bit too low to reach back to back Weather Balls or commit to farming them down, and so unfortunately, I lose that game. Now, going into the final battle, GG's to that previous opponent, by the way. These were actually back-to-back battles, and as well, the wheel spun me the exact same team, and then we also lead into a Morpeko lead, which is also not great for us because it was the same core breaker that we saw in the previous game. But this time they actually bait with a Psychic Fangs, which is certainly not ideal. The opponent probably recognizes that, well, the fact that we are running a Rainy Cast Form in the lead and we're staying in, and we probably want to double shield it. However, they go for another Psychic Fangs, which honestly, we tank very fine. I'm now going to no shield here. The opponent goes and full sends the Aura Wheel, but they hadn't boosted up their attack stat just yet, so it doesn't quite get the knockout. But then they make a savage catch. I blind throw the Energy Ball, expecting them to swap out into like a ground type Pokemon or something that would counter our Ninetales, but they swap into a Shadow Ho-Oh, which is crazy to see. I'm now going to come back in with my Cast Form. I'm firing off the Weather Ball. They're going to no shield, but then they come in with Typhlosion, and that is huge for me because if they came in with the Morpeko, honestly, I'd probably just lose there and then. However, we've now got a lot of play. I'm going to bait with the Weather Ball. I'm going to shield this. I might as well. And the opponent is going to full send a Solar Beam, so that is definitely a great shield usage on my end. Now, we can fire off the Weather Ball. Weather Ball gets the KO there. And from this range, despite being resisted and non-stab, Weather Ball will be taking out the Shadow Typhlosion, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.